So you showed a home a couple weeks ago, your client called you back. Hey Mark, I want to write an offer on that property. It's been on the market about 60 days. You showed it last Tuesday. You go ahead, you write up the offer, submit it over to the agent, only to find out they've already accepted another offer and they are under contract. They just have not updated the MLS yet. What do you do now? How do you feel? What do you tell your client? These are all feelings none of us want to go through. So today we're going to go over all the things you should do before you write an offer. Hey, it's Mark here with the Hiller Group, brokered by eXp Realty. My team and I have you covered here along the beautiful Florida Panhandle, from Pensacola all the way through Panama City, where we have been fortunate enough to sell over 1,200 homes over the past 10 years. So what are the things that you should be doing prior to writing an offer, so you don't get stuck in one of those sketchy situations where you have to go back and explain to your client that, hey, I didn't do my job, and therefore you thought maybe you were getting a house and you're not going to? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to communicate with the listing agent. You need to talk to the listing agent prior to showing the property. This way you can inform your client of all of the things going on with the property, maybe what the buyer or what the seller actually wants as far as terms go. But if you showed a property a week ago and it's been on the market, you think, oh, it's been 60 days, nobody's gonna write an offer. That is just not true. I've had more situations over the years where I've been in multiple offers when a home's been on the market for 60 plus days than I have in ones that have come on the market immediately. And why is that? Because when the market shifts and changes, people's focus goes back to other properties, right? You can't always determine, oh, that thing's been sitting there on the market, it'll be available next week when we come back to it. You can never take that for granted. So you must be always communicating with the listing agent to make sure what the best terms are when you write this offer. The next thing you need to do prior to writing that offer is, when you're showing homes, do a quick inspection of the property, right? Look around, look for very obvious things that are wrong with the property, like maybe a water leak, maybe some wood rot, some termite damage. This is gonna help you write the offer better because you're more informed of what kind of repairs will be needed. But remember, you are not an inspector. You want to leave all of the deep dive into all the house stuff to that inspector, right? But you do want to look for those visual things that you could help your client with. The next thing you need to do is make sure you are gathering all of the property information. Make sure that if they're in an HOA, you get all the HOA rules. Is it built before 1978? Do you need a lead-based paint disclosure, right? All the things that are gonna be important to your client, you need to make sure you're getting them all of that information before you write that offer. The next thing you wanna make sure of is the zoning. Make sure that this is in the proper zone that they want. Is it in the right school zone? Is there any kind of things that would keep them from putting up a privacy fence if there isn't one there? You need to do your due diligence to make sure your client is set up for success. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is make sure you do a CMA. I thought CMAs were for sellers, Mark. Well, if you're doing the right job for your buyer, you are making sure that they are not going to be over offering for a home. The last thing you want to do is put an offer in only to have it not appraised. That looks bad on an agent potentially, right? Because why did you let me offer more than the market would bear? So a buyer could turn that around and get mad at you for letting them make an offer for a home that didn't even appraise. So make sure that home, you're pulling comps, making sure that home is priced accordingly for the neighborhood. And don't always go off of price per square foot. You need to actually do a little bit of digging, because if you're comparing two houses, but one lot's twice as big as the other one, well, guess what? The square footage is gonna be different. Don't take for granted just because the houses are very similar that the price per square foot should be the same. You should also be able to make adjustments for improvements. Like, does this house have Formica countertops versus granite, right? You need to be able to make those adjustments to make sure that your client is not overpaying. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're gathering all the disclosures. Make sure you get your disclosure before you write an offer. I have seen this so many times over the years. Truth fact, I've done it, and it wasn't good. You need to make sure you're getting your disclosures to your clients before you write the offer. Even if that listing agent says, hey, I don't have the seller's disclosure back, well, guess what? Get it, because we're writing an offer. Or write that offer contingent upon seeing that seller's disclosure, okay? Because I've had it happen before where that disclosure comes back after we're under contract, only to find out the house had aluminum wiring. Wasn't disclosed anywhere on the listing, but it was in the seller's disclosure. So I did my client a disservice there. I had to go back and explain to him, hey, I'm so sorry. We didn't get this in time. Unfortunately, we put our offer in, but the house has aluminum wiring. Luckily, in that particular situation, I was in a very good place because the sellers actually decided to go ahead and rewire the house for the buyer. So it ended up not being a big deal, but it could have absolutely killed that deal and lost a ton of trust with that particular buyer. The next thing you want to make sure of is your client's financial position. Make sure they can afford the house. Make sure you've got a pre-qual letter. Had this happen to me too. Learned the hard way, just like a lot of things in real estate. We learn a lot of things in here by doing it wrong and then never doing it wrong again, hopefully. But the pre-qualification is so important. Now, I get it. Like, it's hard to ask for a pre-qual the first day you go meet somebody, right? But we are professionals. You want to value your time and your energy, and you don't want to waste the client's time either. Make sure that they get pre-qualified by a local lending professional. Make sure it's somebody that you trust, somebody you've got a working relationship with, or it's somebody you've heard of. But be careful of some of these cloud-based mortgage companies, because sometimes they're just writing these pre-qualification letters for people that necessarily aren't qualified. We just had a situation exactly this happened about a week and a half ago here to one of my agents, and it ended up absolutely crushing and killing the deal because it was a lender that basically had written a pre-approval that they didn't even deserve. The next thing you need to make sure of that you are discussing all the terms of the contract with your client. Okay, I see this happen a lot of times where, especially with newer agents, they're afraid to actually explain the contract to the buyer, right? So they just send it off to them, and guess what happens? The buyer trusts that agent 100%. That sometimes the buyers don't even read the contract, which is crazy to me. Buyers out there, read your contract. But you need to make sure you're explaining the highlights to them. Make sure that they understand that, like, you know, if they pointed out fogged windows when you were looking at the house, make sure they understand that fogged windows may or may not be included in the offer that you're submitting. Maybe it is part of the repairs, maybe it's not. But you need to make sure you're discussing all of that. Like for us here in Florida, we have warrantable repairs and non-warrantable. You need to make sure that you explain what are warrantable repairs versus non-warrantable, because if your buyer is expecting to get everything on the home inspection covered, and there's only 2 things that are come up that are actually warrantable, the rest are all cosmetic. Here in Florida, you're gonna have a very upset buyer. So making sure that you're taking the time to fully explain everything in the contract so the buyers know what they're getting, they know what to expect, is crucial to keep that deal together. These are all things that you should be doing on the front end before submitting an offer to make sure your client is fully aware of what they're getting themselves into, how the offer process is going to work, and what they can expect. These tips will set you up for success. It will set you up for hopefully a very meaningful relationship with that client, which you can build and get more referrals down the road. But more importantly, you're setting yourself up as a real estate professional. Hope this tip helps you succeed and fast forward your real estate career. If you like this, hit the like and subscribe button. Drop your comments down below, and we'll see you on the next one.